Have you ever walked into a room and immediately felt like people were judging you, even though no one actually said anything? Or maybe you found yourself frustrated with someone for being too controlling, too selfish, or too critical, only to later realize that their behavior wasn't as extreme as you first thought. On the flip side, have you ever looked up to someone believing they had all the answers, only to be surprised when they turn out to be just as human as everyone else? These experiences might feel real in the moment, but often they have more to do with what's going on inside of us than with what's actually happening around us. This is the power of projection, the way our mind takes our internal thoughts, emotions, and past experiences and places them onto other people and situations, shaping how we see the world. And the thing is, most of the time, we don't even realize we're doing it. In this video, we're going to explore how projection works, the surprising ways it shows up in daily life, and how understanding it can help us see ourselves and others more clearly. Projection happens when we unconsciously take aspects of our inner experience, whether it's emotions, fears, beliefs, or even strengths, and assign them to the people and circumstances around us. It's like wearing invisible lenses that color how we perceive everything. If we're feeling insecure, we might assume that others are being dismissive. If we carry unresolved guilt, we might perceive judgment even when no one is actually judging us. The mind does this because it's constantly trying to make sense of the world based on what it already knows. If a certain emotional pattern has been present in our lives for a long time, like feeling unworthy or needing to be in control, we begin to see those patterns reflected in our relationships, work, and even daily interactions. It's not that the outside world is necessarily showing us these things, it's that our internal conditioning is shaping what we perceive. Projection isn't always obvious. Sure, it can show up in common ways, like blaming others for our own mistakes or assuming someone dislikes us without proof. But it also appears in more subtle, unexpected ways that can quietly influence our lives. For example, you might find yourself feeling like your partner doesn't appreciate you, even though they're showing you affection in their own way. Deep down, this could be a reflection of your own unmet need for self-acceptance rather than an actual lack of appreciation from them. Or maybe you often feel like people around you are too controlling, always trying to run the show. But if you take a step back, you might realize that you actually have a deep desire for control yourself, one that you're projecting onto others instead of fully acknowledging. And then there are positive projections. We don't just project our fears and insecurities, we also project our potential onto others. Have you ever met someone and thought they've got it all figured out? They're so confident, so put together, and assumed they have something you don't. That perception might actually be reflecting parts of yourself that you haven't fully owned yet, qualities that exist within you, but you haven't given yourself credit for. Projection shows up everywhere, in relationships, at work, how we see authority figures, friends, and even strangers. The more we become aware of it, the more we can take responsibility for our own perceptions and stop allowing them to dictate our experiences. The challenge with projection is that it can create unnecessary conflict, misunderstanding, and missed opportunities. When we're unaware of our projections, we assume that what we're seeing in others is the absolute truth, rather than a reflection of our inner state. In relationships, this can look like feeling neglected or rejected, even when the other person is showing up for us in ways we're just not recognizing. It can lead to frustration and disappointment at work when we project our fears of failure onto situations that are actually neutral. It can even impact our ability to pursue goals, as we might see obstacles that don't actually exist, only our own self-doubt reflected back to us. But the opposite is also true. When we recognize projection, we gain the ability to step back and see things for what they really are. Instead of assuming the worst about a situation, we can pause and ask ourselves, is this actually happening? Or is it something I'm bringing into the situation? This shift in awareness allows us to make decisions with greater clarity and respond to life from a place of empowerment instead of reaction. The good news is that projection isn't a life sentence. It's simply a pattern of perception that we can change with the right awareness and training. Developing self-awareness allows us to recognize when projection is at play and gives us the choice to shift our focus inward rather than placing responsibility on the external world. Inner training, working consciously with our thoughts and emotions, helps us build the ability to observe our internal patterns without getting caught up in them. With practice, we begin to notice when we're making assumptions based on past experiences rather than present reality. We start to see how our internal state influences our reactions, and from there we can choose a different response. Imagine being able to walk into a meeting without the fear that others are silently judging you, or being in a relationship without feeling the constant need for validation. This is the power of shifting projection, reclaiming your perception, and seeing the world with greater clarity. And it's not about forcing yourself to think differently. It's about training the mind and emotions to naturally shift over time. With consistent effort, projection loses its grip and life starts to feel clearer and more balanced. If you're ready to dive deeper and gain more clarity around your patterns of perception, the Inner Foundation series can provide the tools to help you recognize and transform projection. It's designed to support you in developing greater emotional and mental awareness so you can start experiencing life with more clarity and intention.